I've been on a quest to find the perfect system for thumbnail design since I started YouTube, and I think I finally found the perfect application, Cavalry. And yes, I know, Cavalry is a motion design app, but it's also procedural, which is exactly what I need for my thumbnail style. In this video, I'll show you how to make the tedious task of creating thumbnails easy and repeatable, while also covering a few basics of procedural design in Cavalry. Even if you don't make thumbnails, you can apply these ideas to any procedural rig. So let's dive in by addressing what's the biggest pain in designing thumbnails. It took me quite some time to get there, but I do have a visual language established for my thumbnails. A background with scattered logos of the tool I use in the video, a big readable some text, a strong accent color, an image for the video's topic, and finally, my face. That part? Done. Not a mystery anymore. The problem is production. When every new thumbnail means changing color in multiple places, replacing pictures manually, rebuilding backgrounds and checking text effects. The design may be simple, but the workflow is still tedious and, honestly, kinda boring. But that's where proceduralism shines. Centralized control. One slider to update everything. We will start by creating a new composition, my thumbnail template. Okay. So it's like in After Effects, you can modify the composition settings with Ctrl-K, and we are working with a single frame, so we don't really need a huge playback range nor a huge frame range. So let's reduce that to 10. Okay, so let's create a background for our comp. To do that, we grab the rectangle tool. Here you can see that the magnetism comes in handy. I will change the fill color of this rectangle to black. So the first element I want to bring in is the some text. I will grab the text tool, my new thumbnail. I will change the fill of the text to white. So here, if we check the little plus icon, it will generate a shape that is already properly linked to our text. And we can easily add padding. So let's expose the background of the composition. And if I want to see the checkerboard for getting a notion of the transparent areas of the design, I go in the comp settings and set the alpha channel to 0. Now I can clearly see what's transparent and what's not. So now I can change the color of this item. I can go back to the text layer and add rounded corner in the background tab. Let's go back to the original design and we can see that it's pretty simple. There's a little drop shadow at the top edge of the background and another drop shadow that descends from the font, which also has a stroke in the accent color, but in a shade that is less bright. And on top of that, we have a glow, and also the background is a tiny bit transparent. Let's reproduce that. The transparency of the background will be handled in the shape, where we can put the opacity to 95. Now it's time to add our long-awaited controller into the comp, and to do that, we simply add a color array. A color array is a very simple layer that stores colors. So let's start by creating a blue color, and we will right away create a second color by clicking on plus. Let's use a bright orange for this secondary color. And before wiring color, let's just add a drop shadow on the text so that we have an effect to fill with the color. For that, we go to filters and add a drop shadow. Inside of the drop shadow, I will link both dimensions of the blur, as I want it at 0. Okay, so now why did I create two colors on the color array? Because I only have one accent color. Why not use only one color and change it like so? If the goal is to control the color across the comp with only one parameter, this would absolutely do the trick. But another very powerful aspect of the color array is that you can use it to store colors. If you want to go back to a particular shade of blue that you used in an earlier comp, it will be there, right there. No need to go eyedrop anywhere or remember anything. And to take advantage of this ability to store values, Instead of grabbing the color out here, I take it as the output of the color array and wire it directly inside of the drop shadow. And now if I want to switch between the two colors, I simply remove the auto index and change the index. So here we are at index 0, so that's the blue. And if I move to 1, I will go to the orange, which is index 1. Pretty easy. So now that we understood the principle of what a color array is, let's tweak our drop shadow a little bit. X2, Y minus 2, no, Y minus 3. And now we will need to add the stroke. So we go back to our text, go to the stroke tab, select a stroke, and go back to the color array, grab its output and wire it inside of the color. 4 is too much, go with 2. And now we need to change the color of this stroke so that it's darker than the drop shadow and we get separation and a better illusion of depth. And to do that, I will grab a layer that is called HSV color that allows to create derivative colors. I will explain that in a second. So put it underneath the color array and grab the color array output and bring it to the input color of the HSV color node. And to create a darker value of this accent blue, I only need to set the U shift to 0 and to drop the value. Now you can see that I have a darker shade of blue that is derivated from this lighter one. And actually this is this one that I want plugged. Okay, wrong layer. So grabbing this, going to the text, letting go, and stroke color, right. That's not bad. Now we are missing a slight drop shadow at the edges of the... Oh, actually, it's not a drop shadow, it's an inner shadow at the edges of the background. So let's go to the background, add a filter, inner shadow, go back to the output of the HSV color and wire it inside of the inner shadow color. And now, so let's see, the blur amount is too big. So here we don't have the little chain to log the two values together, but we can simply drag the X value onto the Y value. So now if I modify X, Y gets modified as well. Okay, let's add some spread. And I want it to affect only the top of the background. So let's add a little offset. Okay, yeah, like that. And finally, the last piece is the glow. So this one is on the text and it lives in filters too. So for that one, we need the lighter value. So what comes out of the color array directly. And here we are with our new sum text. And you can see that I can really easily switch colors if I go back to the color array. So we can quickly iterate on colors and test them without losing anything. And honestly, I really love that. It's so much better than having to dive into layer effects in Photoshop or Affinity. So lazy text styling is now checked, but it's not with flashy letters alone that you can catch the eye. No, for that, pictures do beat words. Enter. This part is not very procedural, so we'll make it quick. In my thumbnail, the topic can be a screenshot, a reference image, a quick illustration, or an AI-generated image. It's basically the promise of the video. It tells the viewer, this is what you get when you click. It does not need to be complicated, but it needs to be clear enough, which is something I should probably work on. But now that the topic is in place, I can put my face in there and it has something to react to. And because the whole point of this video is procedurally enabled laziness, I will need an instant face switch to go through this perfectly humble collection of selfies. For the face switch, we have options. The first one, or rather the better one, is a very nice Cavalry feature called Smart Folder. So on my hard drive, I have this folder with a bunch of mugshots that I did for the videos. And when I'm in Cavalry, I can right-click and import it as a smart folder. But how exactly do I switch the pictures? Well, to do that, we'll take a little detour to the dependency graph. It makes it easier to visualize. So how to bring things inside of the dependency graph in Cavalry is by grabbing something in the comp, moving over to the dependency graph, and dropping it over here. When you drop a layer inside of the dependency graph, each upstream layer that feeds it will appear as well. So nodes, layers in Cavalry, they are one and the same. And this is here inside of this asset from smart folder node that we can switch the asset that is represented inside of the image shader. And to do that, we change the mode to index, specific index, and we can now navigate between every asset that lives inside of this folder. If you have a normalized asset library, and by normalized I mean each picture has the same grade, it has the same size, it has the same lighting conditions, this is the better way. But as you've seen when I was moving through this index, well, I do not have that. I have a collection of assets that are mostly the same with a few exceptions. So my preferred method is this one. I've created this composition that is called headshots. So let's grab the headshot collection and bring it to the dependency graph. And here you can see that it's a little more convoluted than a smart folder, but the crux of it is this little node that is called a shader array. So let's bring the smart folder inside of the headshot comp so that we can easily compare the two. Okay, let's move it to the dependency graph. So those two blue nodes, they act as triage stations. Okay, you have assets behind the blue nodes and you display them inside of the footage shape. Now let's take a look at this part. This part is the same as this whole setup, except there is no asset triaging happening, but you can see that it's exactly the same. A shape, an image shader to fill the shape, and an asset to fill the image shader. So the trick here is to convert this image shape back into a shader, which unlocks the possibility to use the shader array we talked about. This very shader array receives a bunch of image shaders, and we can now use it as a switch to choose which image shader we bring into our final shape. So let's go to index 0, and now you can see that this shape allows me to have independent transform controls for this particular image, as well as the possibility to plug independent color correction for this particular image too, which brings a lot of flexibility to the setup. Okay, so now that we understood this headshot comp setup, let's bring it in the template, remove the smart folder, and it goes behind the some text. Okay, so at this point we have the message, the topic, and the reaction. So the last missing piece is, yeah, you guessed it, tool identity. The idea here is to have the logo scattered across the background. I love scattering because it gives variety with zero manual work. Just the illusion that I made some design decisions. There's no scatter node out of the box in Cavalry, but we can pretty easily build one. And to do that, we'll bring a duplicator to our scene. So we can grab it over here on the shelf. We'll grab the YouTube icon and the Cavalry icon, drop them in the composition. What we need to do to duplicate an icon is to grab the output of the shape and plug it in the duplicator. We let go and then select input shape, connect to index 0. Since it's duplicated, I no longer need to see the original icon, and I'm doing the same for the Cavalry icon. Grab the outputs and plug it in the duplicator. And now in input shape, I can connect to a new index. Let's move to the shape scale, lock the aspect ratio so that it's uniform, and shrink it down. Let's bring back our background and move the duplicator and everything related at the bottom of the comp. Okay, so we have a nice grid, but Cavalry offers a much more useful distribution for scattering, and it's random. Now we can modify the width and height of the duplicator so that it matches our composition, which is 1080p. Right. Not bad, but we really need to add some rotation and some scale to those icons to make the whole setup more alive. To do that, we go to the duplicator layer, look for the shape scale parameter, right click on it and add a random behavior. So we can see that it's way too big. So let's reduce the size to 0.1 for the maximum and 0.05 for the minimum. And do the exact same thing for the rotation, shape rotation, there it is, right click, add a behavior, random. The default value of 10 is not what we want either. We want to go full circle and input 360 so that the icon can rotate the full range. And yeah, that's it. We have on the duplicator an easy control for the number of copies. And finally, the last piece of the puzzle, the seed. See how easy it is? I love it. Okay, so now as a final touch, what we can do is bring the glow to the icons. So I will grab the output of the glow and wire it directly onto the duplicator and connect to new index. Bam, instant glow with the right accent color over all my icons. And voila, that's my method for quick and easy thumbnails. But wait a sec. This was made in Houdini, and that, yeah, Houdini too, so... The honest truth is that I don't know if I'll be able to create all my assets in Cavalry, but I'll definitely keep trying. Cavalry has proven its worth on my dark thumbnails, the ones that I use for my streams, and overall it has an incredible potential. And it's free, which is just unreal, so yeah, stay tuned for more Cavalry content. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!